The government has unveiled a 20 lakh crore rupee economic stimulus package. To talk about that and whether that package will be enough to alleviate the current stress in the economy. Joining us now on ET Now is the former Finance Minister, Mr. P Chidambaram. Sir, many thanks for taking your time out and speaking to us at ET Now. You did say, sir, in the morning that the package has left a lot of people high and dry and not enough has been done to create demand. The government's argument, sir, however, is that through the package, term loans will be given, working capital loans are also being provided by banks so that companies can use these to pay wages, to buy raw materials as well. Demand does not alone get increased or spurred at an individual level. You can also do that at an institutional level, and that's exactly what the government is looking to do. Do you agree with the government's prognosis?
I absolutely disagree. Firstly, disabuse yourself of the notion that the package is 20 lakh plus crore. It is only 1,86,650 crore. And unless each of my line items in my statement is contradicted, I'm going to stick to that number. Secondly, what is the problem with the Indian economy today? It was already in a slowdown. The government seems to think that the economy was roaring at 7 or 8% when the corona struck us. The economy has been in a decline for nearly 2 years. For 7 successive quarters, the GDP growth had declined. And if the March 31 figures had come in May, that would have shown a further decline. So this is a lockdown upon a slowdown. Even without a corona, this economy required a massive stimulus. With this corona, it required a super massive stimulus, and that they have not given. They are talking about liquidity. I think I have not come across any economist who says that liquidity acts on the demand side. Liquidity acts on the supply side. But what's the use of stimulating the supply side? There has to be consumers at the other side. People have to consume. Rural and urban consumption has fallen according to every survey and every review. So the first thing to do is put money in the hands of the people and stimulate demand. As long as they don't do that, these solutions are useless and will fail.
Sir, the government also says that instead of giving money in the hands of people to each and everyone, the government is making sure that wherever the money goes, it has a multiplier effect. Isn't that really a differentiated policy approach more than the willingness, so to say, in providing relief in such a crisis? Isn't it, the fact that the government is looking at perhaps empowering people? I just want to get your sense on that.
Buzzwords. People today are hungry. They've run out of cash. Many of them are destitute today. And in a month or so, they'll be devastated. Lower middle class families have started to borrow. Now, families below the lower middle class are practically on the brink of devastation. The answer is to stimulate demand so people can consume more goods and services. Unless people consume more, nothing will work. And if the government seems to think that just because it has provided liquidity, banks will lend, well, RBI provided the liquidity and the banks returned the compliment by depositing most of that money in the RBI. Are they lending? They won't lend. For the reason that the future is uncertain, the future of demand is uncertain, and most of all, the government has damaged, denigrated, and vilified the banking system and the bankers so much in the last 5 to 6 years that no banker wants to lend today.
So the government's argument, however, is that now they are providing some sort of a cushion to the banks. They are providing a sovereign-backed guarantee as in case of MSMEs, and that will help in spurring demand and will allow the banks to also not be so uncomfortable in lending. So they have done whatever they could to the best of their abilities at this point of time.
Their ability is no measure of wisdom. If your ability is limited, well, hand over the reins to someone in your party or government who's more able. Today, the banks will not lend. And you have provided, of course, a collateral-free loan facility up to 3 lakh crore, backed by a credit guarantee. This is for 45 lakh MSMEs. That leaves out 5.8 lakh MSMEs. 5.8 lakh MSMEs employ about 10 crore of the 11 crore people. Unless they start functioning, where is the question of supply improving as well as demand improving? As long as these 10 crore workers remain unemployed, as long as the migrant worker in the other sectors, construction, delivery, retail services, domestic services, remain unemployed, how will demand pick up? I think everybody has made this point. What is required now is to act on the demand side. And the government seems to think it knows better than all the economists of the world. Well, so be it. We have to live with our fate.
I want to understand from you that don't you think that the fiscal concerns are real? You've been a finance minister. You've dealt with, a crisis at one point of time, especially when the risk of a sovereign downgrade is hanging on your head. Is there something that you think perhaps that the government, it's also bound with the kind of problems that they're facing right now, especially with the rating agencies coming down heavily on them?
Who created these problems in the first place? Government's economic management incompetence over 2 years created this pre-corona situation. Everybody seems to think that the current economic situation is only due to corona and only due to the lockdown. You're completely wrong. We were in a bad shape. Even without corona, even without the pandemic, even without the lockdown, this economy was in a decline. And who created it? Government, not the opposition, not the people of India. Government created the situation. The situation is worsened by corona, and government is hiding behind the pandemic to say, we are doing everything that we can. You are not doing everything that you can. This downgrading is an exaggerated fear. Every major economy is going to go into a recession. Germany, Britain, France. We will also go into a recession. Will they downgrade only us? They won't downgrade the other countries. A grading and a rating is a relative. I don't think any rating agency is going to downgrade or downrate 100 countries of the world. It's a thoroughly meaningless exercise because a relative rating will remain the same. I think this is an exaggerated fear, and you cannot allow rating agencies to decide policy. What the people of India need is to be decided by India's government and India's parliament. Now you have kept parliament outside, you have sidelined parliament. You're the only authority. So do what needs to be done. Don't give these lame excuses and don't put forward these misplaced, exaggerated fears.
Right, we should not be afraid of the rating agencies. That's the word coming in by the former finance minister, Mr. P Chidambaram. But sir, having said that, if you were the finance minister during a condition like this, how much headroom does a government really have? What do you think would be the red line or the Lakshman Rekha for you? How much fiscal deficit slippage can we really afford at a time like this?
The sovereign has ample headroom. States don't have headroom. Individuals like you and me do not have too much headroom. Companies don't have headroom, but a sovereign has headroom. Now, any number of economists, Dr. Raghuram Rajan to Dr. Abhijit Banerjee, Dr. Prabhat Patnaik to Dr. Thomas Isaac, Dr. Rangarajan, Mr. Azim Premji, Mr. Venu Srinivasan, leading businessmen, all of them have said, borrow, don't worry about the fiscal deficit. If the fiscal deficit reaches a level where you think there are downsides and it becomes a little uncomfortable, monetize the fiscal deficit. Let me tell you, the most respected and most conservative banker, central banker, Dr. Rangarajan, supports monetizing the fiscal deficit. Now, why are you hesitating? Other countries did it in 2008.
Right.
Some countries did it in 2013. We have not had a need to monetize any part of the fiscal deficit, say, in the last 10 or 15 years. But if need be, monetize part of the fiscal deficit, print money. That is the sovereign's right. If that weapon is there in your hand and you never use it, why have that weapon at all?
You know, I just want to understand from you, maybe the government is saving the best for the last and they don't want to completely do away with all their firepower in one go, because one really doesn't know whether we're at the beginning or the middle of this coronavirus crisis. But one thing is for certain, that we're definitely not at the end.
Who is digging this hole? Who has been digging this hole for the last 2 years? This government. See, go back to the record. Pre-corona, 8 quarters of declining growth. You dug a hole, you are digging a deeper hole, and if you do nothing, the hole will just become deeper and deeper. So do something now. And if the future requires some drastic measure, we will take those drastic measures. The sovereign has ample powers. The sovereign here is a prisoner of its own ignorance or fears or both.
Right, so let me, shift from what the government's economic pill is to the issue of migrant crisis. The government says that they have no data to identify the migrants, mostly due to the lack of system creation due to the previous government. So now, after 2014, now that there is a DBT in place, or the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana is in place, they at least know who the beneficiaries are, and money is being put in the accounts of these people that can be identified. Isn't that now the responsibility of states to provide adequate data so that the government is able to deal with the migrant crisis completely?
A false argument. The problem is, you guys simply accept any argument the government trots out without asking questions. The migrants have gone back to the states. 1 crore, 2 crore, nobody knows. The bulk of them have walked back, trekked back, got onto trucks. Somehow they've got back. Now, every migrant entering every state is being screened, tested, quarantined. After the mandatory quarantine, he's allowed to go back to his home in his village or small town. So you know the migrants, the states know the migrant, they have a record of all those who are in the quarantine. They tested them, they screened them, they quarantined them, they fed them for 14 days. And when they leave the quarantine, give money in their hands. Put 5,000 rupees in an envelope and give it to them, and take their Aadhaar number and record it. What is the difficulty in identifying a migrant? In fact, the simple solution, as Sherlock Holmes said, escapes the most learned people. This is the simplest solution. Everybody knows who the migrant is after they've returned to their home states. And the ones that you took by train, you know the migrants, you've booked a ticket for them, you know their name, you know their Aadhaar number, you even got their smartphone, Arogya, Setu, or whatever that is. You have allowed them to travel. You know that record of 10 lakh people you know. All those who walked, the states know when they screened, tested, and quarantined them. So why don't you people ask these questions of the government? You may not get answers, but aren't you duty-bound on behalf of the people to ask the questions? We don't have an opportunity to ask questions because Parliament is not in session. The Parliament committee is not in session. Please ask the question on behalf of the people of India.
No, as a journalist, I would say, sir, that we are asking these questions from the government as well. But the reason that I asked you was mostly on account of the fact that the government has announced a set of measures for the migrant population as well. And this was the argument that they were giving in, which is why I asked you that, where are the follies in this argument? Having said that, you also this morning did say that the finance minister should reconsider the package. The finance minister says, however, that there is nothing that will be enough at a time like this because of the sheer nature and the size of the pandemic. Is that a fair argument?
No. It's not a fair argument. Just because nothing will be enough, you leave nothing on the table. Is that her argument? You leave whatever is possible on the table. And certainly, India's GDP, India's economy, India's capacity to borrow certainly allows them to borrow, according to most experts, anything up to 10, 12 lakh crore. And I concluded my statement saying that they have to spend more than the 30 lakh crore in the budget. The 30 lakh crore was not enough to stimulate the economy. So let's assume you will spend the 30 lakh crore. You have to spend another 10 lakh crore more. If you spend 40 lakh crore, that may stimulate the demand side of the economy, and then obviously the supply side will follow.
All right, so there is a need to address not just the demand, not just the supply side, but also the demand side of the economy. But on that note, the former Finance Minister, Mr. Chidambaram, many thanks for taking your time out and speaking to us at ET Now. With that, we wrap up this show. We will be coming back with more news stories on the other side.
Thank you.